I used to believe that trust was the foundation of marriage, that love could survive arguments, distance, even mistakes. But one night, everything I thought I knew about my life came crashing down. And in its place, I discovered something I never expected: betrayal hidden behind smiles, charm, and whispered lies. My name is Samantha Reed, and my husband, Mark, had been charming enough to make me believe he loved me more than anything. Or so I thought. It all started on a Friday evening. I had just finished work and was looking forward to a quiet dinner at home. Mark had mentioned he was working late again, and I believed him. I often did. I was a wife who trusted too easily, who ignored the tiny signs, telling myself they didn't matter. The first sign of trouble came when I opened the front door. Shoes. 2 pairs. Mark's sneakers. Always by the door, yes. But another pair. Small, delicate, clearly feminine. I froze. I told myself I was imagining it. Maybe a friend of his? Maybe a delivery? My chest tightened anyway. There was that nagging whisper inside my mind that I always pushed aside. That whisper was now screaming. Then I noticed the faint smell of perfume. Not a subtle one. Strong, floral, sweet, like it didn't belong in my home. I followed the scent. Each step made my stomach churn. I didn't know if I wanted to confront him or run, but my feet moved on their own. In the living room, I saw her. She was sitting on our couch, one leg curled beneath her, laughing at something Mark had whispered. And Mark, my husband, was sitting close, hand brushing hers, leaning in as if the world outside didn't exist. It hit me like a punch to the chest. "She's here?" I whispered to myself. Mark looked up, and for a brief moment, there was that flash of recognition, panic, guilt, fear. "Samantha," he stammered. This isn't." I didn't let him finish. "Who is she, Mark?" My voice was calm, almost eerily calm, like I had no emotion left. He hesitated. It's complicated." I laughed, a low, bitter sound. "Complicated? Do you call bringing your mistress into your own house complicated?" She stood, clearly uncomfortable now. Her eyes darted between us. The realization that she was about to be exposed had hit her, but she didn't know how I would react. Mark tried to intervene. "Samantha, please calm down." "Let me explain." "Explain?" I interrupted, my voice sharper. "Explain how long this has been going on. Explain how many nights you've lied to me. Explain how you've smiled in my face while she sat in our bed." Her face paled. The mistress, whose name I would soon learn was Claire, tried to speak, but I didn't give her the chance. "Don't," I said. "Don't say a word. You are not here because of love, Claire. You're here because Mark." I paused, letting my gaze bore into him. "Wants to lie and cheat and hide. And you, unfortunately, chose to be a part of it." Mark's jaw tightened. "Sam, I didn't mean for you to find out like this." I shook my head. "Didn't mean for me to find out?" "Mark, you planned this. You brought her into our home, into my life, into my space. You thought I'd never notice. You thought I'd never care." He faltered. I didn't want to hurt you." "Hurt me?" I repeated. My voice rose slightly. "Mark, you've been living a double life, lying, stealing moments, betraying me day after day. This isn't just hurting me. This is destroying everything we built together." I turned my gaze back to Claire. "And you," I said softly, dangerously. "Don't pretend you're innocent. You knew he was married. You knew where you were stepping." She swallowed, unsure what to do. She glanced at Mark, seeking reassurance, but all she got was silence. I didn't speak for a moment. I let the room absorb my words. Let the tension rise. Let them feel the weight of their actions. Then I did the only thing I could do without yelling, without collapsing, without crying in front of them like they expected. I smiled. A slow, quiet smile. Mark's eyes narrowed. "Sam, what are you doing?" "I'm thinking," I said, voice low but steady. "I'm thinking about how quiet plans are often the most effective. You brought her into my home, Mark. You thought I wouldn't notice. You thought I'd react with tears or anger." I shook my head slowly. "But I've realized something tonight. I don't need to react the way you expect me to. I don't need to scream or fight. No. My plan will be quiet, precise, and devastating. And you, both of you, won't see it coming until it's too late." Claire's eyes widened. Mark's face went pale. For the first time, I saw fear there, genuine fear. "You? What are you talking about?" Mark asked, voice shaking. I leaned slightly forward. "I'm talking about consequences. About everything you've done catching up to you. About the life you thought you could have without repercussions. About your lies, Mark, and your fake love, Claire. He opened his mouth to say something, but I held up my hand. No, don't. Just leave, both of you. Out of my house. Out of my life. They hesitated. Claire looked like she wanted to argue. Mark tried to step forward, but I didn't move. I didn't flinch. You understand? I said. Out now. Finally, Claire grabbed her bag and hurried to the door, Mark trailing behind her, his pride crumbling with each step. When the door clicked shut, I didn't sigh in relief. I didn't cry. I simply stood there, staring at the empty room that had just been violated, realizing something important. Betrayal changes everything, and it's not always the one who cheats who suffers first. No, sometimes it's the one who waits, who plans, who watches quietly, letting the storm build, and then strikes. Tonight, I realized I was no longer the wife who blindly trusted. I was no longer the woman who cried silently in the corner. I was the one who had noticed everything, remembered everything, and would ensure nothing went unpunished. Mark and Claire had entered my life thinking they could control it, thinking their secret would remain safe, thinking they could continue their little game without consequences. But I had something they didn't: patience, strategy, and a quiet fire burning inside me that they could never imagine. And when my plan begins, it will break their fake love. And I'll be the one standing tall when the dust settles. Because the first step of my quiet plan involves something Mark never saw coming, something hidden in plain sight right under his nose. That night, after Mark and Claire walked out of my house, the silence felt louder than any argument ever could. The walls seemed to echo with memories, laughter, late-night talks, promises whispered in the dark. All of it suddenly felt like a performance I had been watching for years without realizing it. I locked the door behind them. Click. That sound wasn't just a lock. It was the end of the woman I used to be. I stood there for a long time, staring at the door, waiting for something, anger, grief, heartbreak, to finally knock me down. But it didn't. Instead, a strange calm settled over me. Not peace, not forgiveness, just clarity. Mark had underestimated me. Everyone did. I walked slowly through the house, noticing things I had ignored before. A wine glass with lipstick smudged on the rim. A throw pillow moved from its usual place. The faint scent of Claire's perfume still clinging to the air like a stain that refused to fade. I didn't clean anything. Not yet. I wanted to remember every detail. I went into her bedroom, the room that once felt safe. On Mark's side of the bed, his phone charger lay tangled, and beside it, his old tablet, the one he stopped using months ago. He always said it was slow and useless. I picked it up. The screen lit up. It wasn't useless at all. Mark was careless. He always had been. He thought passwords and secrecy were enough to protect him. But he forgot one thing. Devices remember even when people try to forget. I sat on the edge of the bed and opened his email. No password. I almost laughed. There it was. Thread after thread of messages. Hotel bookings. Weekend business trips. Excuses I had believed without question. And then, Claire. The way he wrote to her was different. Soft. Romantic. Words he hadn't used with me in years. I can't wait until we don't have to hide anymore. Soon, it'll just be us. She's too comfortable. She won't notice. That last line made my fingers tighten around the tablet. She's too comfortable. I scrolled further. Claire wasn't innocent. She wasn't just some woman who fell for the wrong man. She pushed. She demanded. She wanted more. When will you tell her? I'm tired of being the secret. I deserve better than scraps. And Mark's reply made my blood run cold. Be patient. Everything is lined up. I just need the timing to be right. Timing. What timing? That's when I found the folder he never meant for me to see. It wasn't labeled work or business. It was simply called Future. Inside were documents, financial projections, account transfers, a draft of a lease agreement for an apartment across town, 2 names listed as occupants. Not mine. Mark Reed. Claire Wilson. I leaned back, my heart pounding. He wasn't just cheating. He was planning to replace me. I took photos of everything. Every email. Every file. Every transaction. I didn't rush. I didn't panic. I saved it all carefully, knowing this was ammunition, not for revenge fueled by rage, but for something smarter, something quieter. My phone buzzed. A message from Mark. Mark. Sam, we need to talk. Please. Don't do anything you'll regret. I smiled. Oh, Mark. I already know exactly what I'm doing. I didn't reply. Instead, I did something he would never expect. I called his mother. "Hi, Linda," I said gently when she answered. "I hope I'm not calling too late." "Oh, Samantha. Sweetheart," she replied warmly. "Is everything okay?" I paused just long enough. "Not exactly, but I wanted to ask you something." "Of course." "What is it? Did Mark ever mention selling the house?" There was a brief silence. "Selling the house?" "No. Why would he?" I nodded to myself. "I thought so. Thank you." I hung up before she could ask more. So he hadn't told his family. Interesting. Then I called our bank. I didn't accuse. I didn't explain everything. I simply asked questions. Calm questions. Professional questions. And with every answer, my plan became clearer. The next morning, I went to work like nothing had happened. I smiled. I laughed. I answered emails. No one suspected a thing. Mark called me 4 times. I ignored every call. Around noon, Claire texted me. "Claire, I never wanted to hurt you. He told me your marriage was already over." I stared at the message for a long time. Then I replied with only 3 words. "Me." You believed him. That was all. That afternoon, Mark finally showed up at the house. I heard his key in the lock. He froze when he saw me calmly sitting at the dining table sipping tea. You're here," he said carefully. "Of course," I replied. "It's my house." He swallowed. "Sam, I'm sorry about everything. I didn't mean for it to go this far." I tilted my head. "Then why did you sign a lease with another woman?" His face drained of color. You went through my things?" "No," I said calmly. "You left them open." Silence stretched between us. "I can explain," he said weakly. I stood up slowly and looked him straight in the eye. "No," I said softly. "You already did. Every lie, every plan, every betrayal." He stepped closer. "Please don't do anything rash." I smiled again, that same quiet, unsettling smile. "Rash," I repeated. "Mark, everything I'm about to do will be very carefully planned." His eyes widened. "What does that mean?" I walked past him, stopping at the door. "It means," I said without turning back, "that while you were busy building a future with her, I was preparing to take it all apart." And as I stepped outside, leaving him alone in the house he thought he controlled, I knew the next phase of my plan was about to begin. Because the truth was, Mark had already made one fatal mistake, and he didn't even realize it yet. What Mark didn't know was that the one document he forged would become the very weapon that destroyed everything he tried to steal from me. The next morning, I woke up with a plan forming clearly in my mind. Mark had underestimated me, not just emotionally, but strategically. He thought I'd react with tears, anger, or silent resignation. He had no idea I had already started collecting the pieces I needed to dismantle his life, quietly and completely. I began with his finances. Mark had always been careless with money. Not extravagant, not flashy, but reckless in small ways. Forgotten payments, unauthorized transfers, hidden subscriptions. I had seen hints of it before, but I never thought they'd be so useful. Now, they were a map, a blueprint of everything he had tried to hide. I spent the morning combing through his accounts, cross-referencing emails and bills I had photographed the night before. Every hidden credit card, every transaction to Claire, every hotel booking, all lined up perfectly, all waiting for me. By mid-afternoon, I had a plan. I would start quietly, targeting the weakest link first, the Mistress. Claire wasn't dangerous. She was opportunistic, and she had a secret fear that one day Mark would leave her, and she'd have nothing. That fear was my tool. I texted her, not a long message, not angry, just a simple warning. Me, you should reconsider your choices. Some things have consequences. Minutes later, her response came. Claire, what do you mean? Are you threatening me? I smiled quietly at my phone. Perfect. Exactly what I wanted. Me, I'm not threatening. I'm informing. Think carefully about your next move. The subtlety was everything. She panicked, and I could already see the cracks forming. People who act on impulse are easy to manipulate. By evening, Mark returned home again, clearly confused. His energy was jittery, forced, like a man trying to walk a tightrope without a net. He avoided my eyes, fiddling with his keys in the entryway. "Sam, can we talk?" he asked cautiously. I didn't respond. I kept sorting documents at the kitchen table. "I know you found out about Claire," he said slowly. I can fix this." I finally looked at him, my expression calm but piercing. "Fix it?" Mark, what exactly are you planning to fix? The lies? The deceit? Or the fact that you signed a lease for her in our city while pretending to come home to me? He faltered. It's complicated. You don't understand. Complicated? I interrupted. Let me tell you what's complicated. Pretending to love someone while loving someone else. Pretending to be faithful while sleeping with her. Pretending our life is normal while building a secret life with another woman. That's complicated, Mark. Not the truth. His face twitched. He opened his mouth, then shut it. I knew he had no answer. Do you even realize? I continued. How much you've exposed yourself. Every transaction, every secret email, every hidden booking, everything is documented. You can't deny it. And Claire, she's terrified now. Because I made sure she knows the truth. Quietly. Without anyone noticing. Mark's hands were trembling now. Sam, please. I can make it right. No, I said softly, almost cruelly. You don't get to make it right. You get to face what you created. He swallowed hard, his lips pressed into a thin line. And the funniest part? I asked, leaning closer. You thought I wouldn't notice the small things, the subtle patterns, the little signs. You underestimated my patience, my quiet observation. That was your first mistake. He flinched. I could see the realization dawning. He had built a house of cards, and I was holding the one card that would bring it all down. Then I pulled out the tablet. You left this open, Mark. Everything is here. Every plan you had. Every time you thought I wouldn't find out. It's all here. His face paled. Sam, please put that down. No, I said firmly. This is exactly what I need to do, what has to be done. And then I gave him the first taste of what was coming. A preview of consequences. Not yet full exposure, but enough to shake his foundation. I started contacting the people who had been unknowingly dragged into his schemes. Suppliers, bank representatives, even the apartment manager for the lease he had prepared for Claire. Each call was carefully phrased, each word measured. I didn't accuse, I just asked questions. Questions that planted seeds of doubt. Questions that suggested oversight, mismanagement, and potential fraud. By the time Mark realized what I was doing, it was too late. The first ripple of panic had already spread. Emails bounced. Calls were returned with concern. Claire texted him frantic messages. And Mark, he couldn't reach her or me in a way that would change anything. That night, after he finally stormed out in frustration, I sat alone at the kitchen table, reviewing the day's progress. I didn't celebrate. I didn't laugh, but I allowed myself a small, victorious thought. I was no longer a victim. I was in control. And the most delicious part? He had no idea what I had planned next. The quiet plan I had been cultivating, the one Mark never saw coming, was only beginning. Every step he took, every desperate move to cover his mistakes, only played into my hands. Claire was already trembling, Mark was panicking, and I was watching patiently, ready to strike again. I smiled, sipping my tea, as the faint sound of Mark's car door slamming outside echoed in my quiet kitchen. He thought he had survived the first blow. He had no idea that the real consequences were still on their way. Because patience, observation, and quiet planning are more dangerous than rage. And I had all three. And then, the next morning, a single message arrived on my phone. A message that would change everything and bring both Mark and Claire to their knees. The message arrived at 6:17 a.m. I was still in bed, staring at the ceiling, when my phone buzzed softly beside me. For a moment, I considered ignoring it. But something in my chest tightened, warning me this wasn't just another panicked text from Mark, or a guilt-soaked apology from Claire. I picked up the phone. It was from an unknown number. Unknown. We need to talk. I know what Mark has been hiding. My heart skipped. I sat up slowly, my mind already racing. Whoever this was, they weren't bluffing. People don't send messages like that unless they have something real, something dangerous. I replied with one word. Me. Who is this? The reply came almost instantly. Unknown. Someone he owes. Someone who's tired of being lied to. I closed my eyes for a moment. So this was it. Mark's lies weren't just hurting me anymore. They were spilling into places he could no longer control. Me. What do you want? 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Unknown. The truth, and maybe justice. I stared at the screen, my pulse steady but heavy. I wasn't afraid. I was ready. Me. Then meet me. Public place. My terms. A pause. Unknown. Fine. Today, 11 a.m. Coffee shop on Maple Street. I put the phone down and exhaled slowly. This was the turning point. At 11 a.m. sharp, I walked into the coffee shop. Sunlight streamed through the windows, warm and ordinary, too ordinary for the storm that was about to unfold. He was already there, mid-40s, well-dressed, calm. The kind of man who had learned patience the hard way. "You must be Samantha," he said, standing up politely. "And you are?" I asked. "David Keller," he replied. "Mark's former investor." Former. That word alone told me a lot. We sat down. He wasted no time. "Mark took money from me," David said quietly. "Promised returns. Promised transparency." "He lied." I nodded. "That doesn't surprise me. He told me his wife was unstable." David continued, watching my reaction closely. "Said you didn't understand business. Said you were emotional." I smiled faintly. He always did underestimate me. David slid a folder across the table. He forged signatures, moved funds without authorization. And when I started asking questions, he vanished. I opened the folder. There it was, the forged document, my signature, perfectly copied. My stomach tightened, but I didn't flinch. "This," David said, "is fraud. And if I take this to the authorities, Mark goes down hard. But before I do that, I wanted to speak to you." "Why?" I asked. "Because you're the real victim," he said. "And because I think you deserve to decide how this ends." I closed the folder slowly. Mark's fatal mistake. The one I had sensed, but never fully confirmed. Forgery. I stood up, my legs steady. "Thank you," I said, "for bringing this to me." David nodded. "Whatever you decide. I won't stand in your way." That evening, Mark called me again. This time, his voice was shaking. "Sam, please. You've been talking to people." "I know it. Investors, banks. Someone came to my office today." I leaned back in my chair. "Oh?" "They're asking questions," he whispered. "Serious questions." I stayed silent. "Sam, if you have something. If you know something, please. We can fix this." I laughed softly. "Mark," I said calmly, "you lost the right to fix anything the moment you forged my signature." The silence on the other end was deafening. "You don't understand," he began. "No," I interrupted. "I understand perfectly. You lied to me. You cheated on me. You stole from me. And now you're afraid." His voice broke. "Please don't destroy me." I closed my eyes. "You destroyed yourself," I said. "I'm just done protecting you." I hung up. Claire showed up at my house that night. She looked nothing like the confident woman who once sat on my couch. Her eyes were red. Her hands trembled. "Emily, Samantha, please," she said, barely able to speak. "He lied to me too." "He said you knew." "He said you agreed." I stared at her coldly. "You slept with my husband." She nodded, sobbing. "I didn't know he was committing crimes." I swear, I believed her. But belief didn't mean forgiveness. "He's going down," I said quietly. "And if you're smart, you'll walk away now." She swallowed hard. "What about us?" "There is no us," I said. "There never was. There was you, chasing a fantasy built on lies." She nodded slowly, defeated, and left without another word. That night, I sent one final email. To my lawyer, to David, to the bank. Subject line: evidence of fraud and forgery. I attached everything, and when I hit send, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Relief. But it didn't last long, because 10 minutes later, my phone rang again. Unknown number. I answered. "Samantha?" A calm voice said. "This is Detective Harris. We need to speak with you about your husband." My heart slowed. "Yes?" I said. "He's missing." My breath caught. "Missing?" "Yes," the detective continued. "His office is empty. His car was found abandoned. And given the evidence we just received." He paused. "We believe Mark is trying to run." And as I stared at the wall, heart pounding, one terrifying thought echoed in my mind. Mark wasn't just running. He was running from something far worse than me. The news hit me like ice water. Mark was missing. Not a call. Not a note. Just gone. And with him, every lie, every scheme, every stolen dollar seemed to hang in the air, unfinished, waiting for me to decide what would happen next. I sat on the edge of our bed, phone still in hand, thinking. He had underestimated me at every step. He thought a quiet mistress, a few hidden accounts, and some forged documents would be enough to control everything. But he didn't know me. He didn't know patience. He didn't know observation. And he didn't know strategy. The detective's words rang in my ears. "We believe Mark is trying to run." I smiled faintly. But it wasn't relief. It was resolve. If Mark thought he could escape accountability, he was wrong. I spent the next few hours coordinating quietly. First, with David, the investor. Every transfer, every email, every account was traced. Every attempt Mark had made to hide his tracks was being exposed step by step. By the time the authorities got involved, all they had to do was follow the trail straight back to him. Then there was Claire. She called me that afternoon, her voice trembling. "Samantha, I don't know where he is. He said we could leave, start over. Please, help me." I listened carefully, letting my calm tone do the work. "Claire," I said softly, "the only reason I'm helping is because you were a victim too. You need to walk away from him. Now, before it's too late." She hesitated, and I pressed the point. "If you stay, you'll be tied to everything he's done. Do you understand?" Her sobs were quiet on the other end. "Yeah, I understand." "Good." Step 1, she was gone. By evening, the authorities had tracked Mark to a small motel outside the city. His panic was evident. He hadn't thought this far ahead. No plan for real escape. No safe place to hide. Just desperation. I stayed at home, watching silently, letting the tension build. Mark had called me that morning, begging, pleading, demanding that I intervene. But I didn't answer. I had learned long ago that those who cheat, lie, and manipulate rarely deserve mercy. And this time, mercy would be the wrong move. The call finally came from Detective Harris. "He's at the motel," the detective said calmly. "We're preparing to approach, but we need confirmation of his financial crimes before we make a move." I replied succinctly. "Everything you need is in the folder I sent." "Understood," he said. And just like that, it was over. I took a deep breath and walked to the window. The street outside was quiet, ordinary, peaceful. For the first time in weeks, I allowed myself a moment to feel relief, not joy, not revenge, just clarity. Because this wasn't about gloating. It wasn't about making him suffer. It was about reclaiming control, rebuilding the life he tried to destroy. The next day, the news broke. Local businessman arrested in fraud and forgery case. Mark's face was on every screen, his arrogance replaced with terror. And behind the headlines, buried in the details, my name, Claire's departure, the extent of his lies. I didn't celebrate publicly, but privately. I allowed myself a small smile. I had done what I needed to do. Quietly, carefully, strategically. Mark's empire collapsed overnight. Investors called to reclaim funds. The bank froze accounts. Claire's name was cleared, and I emerged unscathed. Weeks later, I sat in the quiet of my living room. The house was mine again. No secrets, no lies, no shadows lurking behind every corner. My phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. I opened it cautiously. "Unknown. You did it. He's finished." I smiled, typing a reply. Me. I never doubted it. And then, I put the phone down, letting the sunlight spill across the floorboards. For the first time in months, I felt whole, strong, free. Mark had tried to break me. Claire had tried to manipulate me. And the betrayal had cut deep. But it had also revealed something more important. I was capable of more than I had ever known. I could protect myself. I could see the truth. I could act. And when the moment was right, I could destroy the lies quietly, efficiently, completely. Because revenge isn't about rage. It's about patience. It's about precision. And it's about never letting someone think they are untouchable. Mark thought he could control my world, thought he could cheat, lie, and manipulate without consequence. He was wrong. And when it was all over, the only thing left standing was me. Yin.